The day my twin brother married my fiancée was coincidentally the day I was pronounced dead, courtesy of a car accident arranged by my parents. Mom and Dad were beaming. With the bride's family's backing, my brother was sure to reach the pinnacle of success. Little did they know, the bride before them, with her enchanting smile, would personally drag them into hell. I floated above the wedding venue, watching Olivia Hayes in her wedding gown, gliding gracefully toward the groom's dressing room. More beautiful than in my dreams. Perhaps to look even more perfect in the dress, she seemed thinner. My brother, Ethan Miller, was so startled to see her that he shot up from his seat. It took him a moment to compose himself before he adopted a doting tone. Liv, you know it's bad luck for the bride and groom to see each other before the ceremony. His voice was uncannily like mine. Even someone as perceptive as Olivia couldn't tell the difference. Olivia didn't respond, merely lifting a slender, pale hand to adjust his bow tie. Why the last-minute change of tuxedo? Ethan was prepared, his voice gentle. I wanted to surprise you, Liv. I heard this tuxedo and your gown were made by the same designer. Of course, he wouldn't dare wear my tuxedo. He'd spent a whole year practicing my voice and mannerisms. But no matter how many personal trainers he hired or how much iron he pumped, he couldn't sculpt a physique identical to mine. A body built in a rush could never truly replicate one honed by years of consistent training. Olivia's hand, after adjusting Ethan's bow tie, slid down the front of his shirt, her arm lightly encircling his lower back. Ethan immediately dipped his head, closing his eyes to hide his elation. He'd hired people to secretly film Olivia and me, to study our interactions. He knew that at moments like this, I would lean in to kiss her. Knowing what was coming, I turned my head away. Olivia loved physical affection with me. To others, she was the powerful matriarch, holding the reins of a corporation, deciding its fate. But with me, she was like a koala bear. She practically wanted to be attached to me at all times. She craved affection like a child with a sweet tooth, never getting enough, no matter how sugary. Actually, Ethan was the one originally meant to marry into Olivia's family. But at the time, Olivia hadn't yet returned from overseas, and a storm of rumors about her wild escapades had already reached home. Terrified their precious son would be thrown into a lion's den, my parents turned their attention to me, the child the Miller family had kept hidden. They called it a marriage alliance, but in reality, it was more like sending a tribute to the Hayes family, which family in Kingsport didn't depend on the Hayeses to some extent. But as fate would have it, the future head of the Hayes family was a reputed sorceress, stunningly beautiful, but with a venomous heart. It was said that no man she toyed with had ever emerged unscathed. Promising young men, one after another, were reduced to shells of their former selves, many ending up in psychiatric hospitals. Yet, despite this, young men were still continuously sent her way, like offerings to secure their family's prosperity. What no one in the Miller family expected was that after I was sent to the Hayes household, I would not only survive for 2 years unscathed, but, to everyone's astonishment, our wedding would be announced. When the wedding invitation from the Hayes family arrived, the whole of Kingsport was buzzing. The Millers were equally frantic. Just when I thought I might finally see a flicker of warmth in my parents' eyes, I was met instead with a death sentence. Even though I was their child, just like my brother. Simply because I was a bit plumper at birth, they stubbornly believed I had stolen everything that rightfully belonged to him. They blamed my brother's congenital frailty and his subsequent personality flaws entirely on me. My father, a businessman, was particularly superstitious. He consulted a psychic. One of us brothers, the psychic had said, would bring ruin to the Miller family. My parents hadn't intended to keep me, but my grandmother stepped in. Keep him. If worst comes to worst, I'll take care of him myself, old as I am. And so, I was sent to live in a small town out in the country, secretly raised by my grandmother. Grandma named me Nathan. She hoped I would be a man of integrity and kindness. Ultimately, I couldn't completely turn away from the two of them. My brother, Ethan, had already leaned in, his face close to Olivia's exquisite one. I drifted closer, wanting Olivia to notice me, wanting Olivia to realize that the Ethan standing before her was not me. Though we'd been together for 2 years, I still felt I didn't fully understand her. But I still hoped, for the sake of me being her fiancé, that she would find my body, my corneas already harvested. Olivia, I'm so cold. Alas, Olivia didn't sense me, nor did she let Ethan kiss her. Instead, she took 2 steps back, tilted her head up, and looked Ethan straight in the eye. Why didn't you answer your phone last night? Ethan froze for a second, then quickly took her hand, explaining. Yesterday, I heard Grandma had a fall, so I rushed to the hospital to see her. I must have missed your call. Hearing him mention Grandma, a sharp pain twisted in my chest. It was Grandma who had fought tooth and nail to save me, who had cared for me day in and day out, raising me. Why then would she call and trick me into going to that intersection, allowing a bribe truck driver to run me down? I wanted to ask Grandma, why couldn't she bear to abandon me then, yet could bear to kill me now? Hearing Ethan's explanation, Olivia replied, Grandma's well-being is indeed more important. Hearing this, I couldn't help but frown. Olivia never used to say things like that. From the very first day of our arranged courtship, she had said I was a sacrificial offering sent by the Miller family. From then on, I had to be at her beck and call. Always available, texts answered instantly, phone on standby 24/7. In short, she made me promise that she would be the most important person in my life, that no one could come before her. And over these years, I had indeed kept that promise. That's how I earned her refusal of other offerings, and even this grand wedding. You're always so understanding, Liv. Seeing Olivia wasn't angry, Ethan grew bolder. He was about to lean in and press his lips to hers. But then a knock on the dressing room door. Olivia's assistant's voice came through. Ms. Hayes, you have a personal call. Okay. Olivia pulled away and left. Ethan's mouth twitched. That assistant had no tact. Once he successfully married Olivia and got into Hayes Corp, she'd be the first one he'd fire. Ethan adjusted his tuxedo in the mirror, his vision suddenly blurring. He slammed his fist on the dressing table in frustration. Just then, Mr. and Mrs. Miller walked in together. Mr. Miller's face was alight with joy. Ethan, it's done. With that, he tossed a phone onto the table. I recognized it immediately. It was my phone. The corneas? Ethan raised an eyebrow, that being his only concern at the moment. Don't you worry, son. It's all been taken care of. If you want, you can have his surgery tomorrow, Mrs. Miller said, caressing his face with a look of adoration. No loose ends, right? The thought of no longer being tormented by blurred vision put Ethan in a much better mood. Relax, Ethan. We dumped it in a lake out in the middle of nowhere. By the time spring rolls around in 3 or 4 months, it'll be bloated beyond recognition, and this whole thing will have blown over, Mr. Miller said nonchalantly. He spoke as if discussing some object, without a hint of emotion. Floating in midair, I tried to clench my fist but found I had no strength. Only at this moment did I realize. The ones who had bribed the driver to kill me were my own parents. Don't talk about it. Today's my wedding day. It's bad luck. Ethan said, as if disgusted. It's all right, son. Don't worry. We've already had a spiritualist perform a ritual, a binding curse, to ensure his soul never finds peace. So, he can't bother you, Mrs. Miller said with a motherly smile. Floating freely in the air, I couldn't help but raise an eyebrow. This spiritualist, though, didn't seem very effective. Hearing this, Ethan felt a wave of relief, but he still feigned a troubled expression. Doing this to Nathan, it doesn't feel right. That Jinx, what kind of brother is he to you? Mr. Miller spat, his face contorted with anger. That's right, son. Don't you feel burdened? He owes you all of this. When I think about how he bullied you even in my womb, how small and weak you were when you were born, my heart just aches. Your weak constitution, your poor eyesight, it's all because that Jinx drained you. Not only that Jinx ruined our family business, forcing us to live at the mercy of others. Sending him to the Hayes family to enjoy 2 years of comfort was already letting him off easy, Mr. Miller grew angrier as he spoke. Hearing this, I almost wanted to laugh. I wondered if, in the future, he'd also blame his erectile dysfunction or his wife's infidelity on me. Son, you don't need to feel guilty. The position of Olivia Hayes' husband was rightfully yours from the start. He took what was yours. Now, things are just being set right, Mrs. Miller chimed in. He once saw Olivia as a terrifying monster, which was why he let me take his place. Later, when he realized I seemed to be doing quite well by Olivia's side, even securing a formal engagement, and with Olivia poised to take full control of her family's empire, he started seeing Olivia as a goddess. And when the Hayes family announced our wedding, he went mad wanting to snatch it all back. The ceremony was about to begin. Ethan was already standing in the spot that should have been mine, awaiting the bride he'd dreamt of, awaiting the immense wealth that was about to descend upon him. Mr. and Mrs. Miller were all smiles. Olivia was a woman. As long as their precious son married her, wouldn't the Hayes Corporation eventually be under the Miller family's control? I drifted out of the chapel, silently watching Olivia, who, even at a time like this, was outside, gravely handling business matters. I knew that soon she would officially take over Hayes Corp. She wouldn't be soft-hearted like her father. Then, she would make her move against several of Kingsport's notoriously corrupt elite families. She had meticulously planned for years, waiting for this moment to close her net. Accepting those so-called sacrificial offerings, even today's wedding, was merely a smokescreen she prepared to buy herself time. Last night, around midnight, Grandma called me. She wanted to accompany me on a trip back to the Miller house. I had originally thought blood was thicker than water, that my parents finally wanted to let go of their prejudice and acknowledge me. If that was the case, I still wanted to warn them to stop their wicked ways, to lie low. Perhaps they could escape the Hayes corpse impending reckoning. But I never expected that before I could even speak, I'd be run down on the road back to the Miller house. I'll never forget the expression on Grandma's face as she watched me from across the street. No sadness. There was even a hint of relief. Grandma, did even you feel I deserved it? The ceremony began. All eyes were on her. Olivia walked in step by step. She was breathtakingly beautiful. Floating in the shadows, I watched this scene, wanting to cry. I longed to hold her hand, but I could no longer do that. Ethan took a few steps forward to take her hand, as if to firmly grasp the prosperity and honor of the rest of his life. But Olivia didn't extend her hand. She just looked at him quietly, her gaze scrutinizing, her lips pressed into a thin line. This was the expression she often wore when she suspected something about me. Could it be? She found out. Liv, what's wrong? Ethan asked nervously in a low voice. Olivia didn't answer him, merely asking in return, You seem very happy. Ethan immediately wiped the smile from his face. He'd almost forgotten he was supposed to mimic my usual anxious demeanor. So he lowered his head, his voice laden with a cryptic meaning. Happy and not happy. Olivia waved her hand. That's enough for today. With that, she turned and left. The guests dispersed in a hurry. Everyone had come out of respect for the Hayes family. If the future head of the Hayes family said to leave, no one dared to linger. Only the Miller family remained, pacing anxiously. What did this mean? Was it postponed or called off? But with a million questions swirling in their minds, they didn't dare chase after her to ask. Even I, floating in the air, was somewhat puzzled. If it was a smokescreen, then the act should have been played out to the end. Why did she suddenly change her mind? Just because Ethan looked happy? I realized I still didn't understand Olivia well enough. Olivia left just like that. Mr. and Mrs. Miller, fearing Ethan would be heartbroken, took turns comforting him. Hayes just said that's enough for today. She didn't directly say the engagement is off. You don't need to be sad. Right, maybe Ms. Hayes just had something important at the company to deal with. Ethan just paced back and forth irritably, meticulously replaying their interaction. He practiced countless times, watching the secret videos he'd taken. His performance just now shouldn't have had any flaws. Just then the phone on the table suddenly buzzed. Ethan glanced at it, alarmed. It was no wonder he was spooked. After all, it was a dead man's phone. He picked it up, fighting back a wave of nausea. It was a message from Olivia. Go home first. Ethan tossed the phone away with some disgust, but still breathed a sigh of relief. Pulling himself together, he went to the villa Olivia and I shared. Maria, the housekeeper, opened the door, delighted. Mr. Miller, it's been 2 years, but I've finally been waiting for you. Now I knew, from the very beginning, they had planned to get rid of me. Maria showed Ethan around the villa, telling him every minute detail of my life with Olivia. Ethan, who had already deliberately mimicked my habits, learned quickly. But I heard that Jinx also had a dog. Ethan remembered this and quickly asked. Don't worry, sir. I've already taken care of it, Maria said with a smile. Hearing this, my mind went blank. I frantically drifted around, searching for my buddy, but I searched everywhere inside and outside the villa and found no trace of him. To prevent Ethan from being exposed, they wouldn't even spare my buddy. True, they dared to kill a person, let alone a dog. Buddy was a little mutt. One snowy day, I found him, nearly dead, on the road outside the villa. In that moment, I felt like a child again, locked out on a snowy night, close to freezing to death by the front gate. I stood at the villa door, holding him, and tentatively asked Olivia for the second time in my life, Can I keep him? The first time I'd asked Olivia for something was when I encountered a truck driver who'd been injured in an accident, but refused an ambulance because he had no money. I wanted to bring a stranger home, so I had to ask Olivia. The funny thing was, when a man left the next day, he called me boss and her boss lady. And this time, I brought back a dog. Olivia recoiled in disgust, sternly saying no. So sternly that if I pleaded any further, it felt like she would throw both me and the puppy out the door. It wasn't until I stood outside with the puppy until nightfall that she snapped at me irritably. Aren't you going to get your butt in here? I knew she'd relented. Overjoyed, I took the puppy inside to bathe him, fed him milk, and named him Buddy. Although Olivia would always put on a mask in disgust whenever she saw Buddy afterward, she never kicked him out. Later, a guest who knew about feng shui came over. Seeing Buddy lying obediently at Olivia's feet, he shook his head. This dog is all black, but its nose and tail are white. That's very unlucky. Hearing this, I quickly carried Buddy upstairs. As I closed the door, the guest's words still slipped through the crack. If you must keep it, you need to cut off its nose and tail. I quickly slammed the door shut, clutching Buddy and trembling in my room. I didn't even dare go down for dinner. Thankfully, Olivia never mentioned it again. Buddy's nose and tail were spared. That evening, Olivia returned. As soon as she entered, Ethan rushed up to take her coat and bag. Olivia quickly noticed that a little black fur ball wasn't tumbling and scrambling towards her. She frowned and asked, "Where's the dog?" Maria quickly answered with a smile. "Well, yesterday I was busy seeing off guests and forgot to lock Buddy up. He got into the trash can, ate a lot of chicken bones, and perforated his stomach. He's at the pet clinic on N4 right now." Floating in the air, I clenched my fists in anger. Lies. Buddy was a good boy. He never rummaged through the trash. Unfortunately, Olivia couldn't hear my rebuttal. She just hummed an acknowledgement and went upstairs. Ethan followed her. I wanted to float to the pet clinic to see Buddy, but I found I couldn't move far from this place. Olivia went straight to take a shower. Ethan was thrilled and quickly went into the bedroom to prepare everything. Having already bathed, he hurriedly tidied his hair in the mirror, his fingertips brushing over the freshly tattooed mole behind his ear, identical to mine. He was determined to succeed. Olivia came in, like a lotus emerging from water, captivating. Ethan's eyes darkened. He went to pull her to sit on the edge of the bed, then carefully began to blow dry her hair. Every movement had been meticulously practiced. Sure enough, it didn't arouse Olivia's suspicion. As his breathing grew heavier, I really didn't want to stay here any longer. Ethan took out a small foil packet from under the pillow. Just as he was about to tear it open, Olivia suddenly spoke. "Get out." Though reluctant, Ethan didn't dare disobey Olivia. He retreated with annoyance and confusion. Even after returning to the guest room, Ethan still couldn't figure it out. Carefully recalling the sequence of events, Ethan keenly sensed where the problem lay, muttering to himself. Could it be that the size or some of that thing wasn't right? That can't be. I bought it according to what Maria said. Did Olivia suddenly change her preference? I couldn't help but want to laugh. A year ago, concerned about Olivia's experience, I had begged her to let me get a vasectomy. We hadn't used those things in ages. Did Maria only know how to snoop through the bedroom drawers, but not count properly? Just then, the phone on the table buzzed again. Ethan picked it up and looked. "Tomorrow morning, I'll go with you to see Grandma." Ethan instinctively wanted to refuse, but remembering her attitude earlier, he truly didn't dare to defy her in the slightest right now. Not daring to hesitate too much, he replied, "Okay." Floating in midair, I fell into deep thought. Before, she had never cared about my family. She was going to accompany Ethan to see Grandma. Ethan immediately called the Miller home. Mr. and Mrs. Miller were probably going to be busy for a while. The next morning, Olivia took Ethan to the hospital where Grandma was staying. Olivia sat in the back seat, her face expressionless. Ethan sat beside her. Thinking about their destination being a hospital, he became too nervous to utter any more ingratiating words. The space between them was large enough for me to float in. Olivia had a temper when she woke up. If she usually got up this early, she would definitely find fault and scold me relentlessly. But I had ways to make her shut up. When we were in the car, she would always lean on me and nap for a while longer. Unfortunately, I could no longer let her lean on me now. They soon arrived at the hospital. I don't know why, but as soon as I floated out of the car, I felt a sense of panic and discomfort. Mr. and Mrs. Miller had already eagerly come out to greet them. I couldn't even be bothered to look at them. I just floated straight past. Soon, we reached Grandma's bed on the second floor. Grandma sat up quickly when she saw Ethan, reaching out her withered hand to take his, her eyes full of worry. Seeing this, I felt a pang of sadness. Grandma had raised me, yet she had never looked at me like that. Not when I had a high fever from being frozen as a child, nor when I almost drowned after falling into the river, nor yesterday when I lay in a pool of blood. Grandma, why did you have to want me dead? Perhaps I would have been willing to give your grandson my corneas in my current position. Unfortunately, Grandma couldn't see me. In her eyes, there had only ever been her other grandson. Mr. and Mrs. Miller politely said that Grandma had just had a fall and it was nothing serious. There was no need to make such a fuss to visit her. Olivia said, with a touch of indifference, that she was an elder, after all. Then she carefully inquired about how Grandma had fallen yesterday and how Ethan had brought her to the hospital. But I kept looking towards the end of the corridor. I could feel that my body was in this hospital. After all, Removing corneas took time, and moving a body required the cover of darkness. It wasn't until tiny beads of sweat appeared on Grandma's forehead. Only then did Olivia end the conversation and get up, walking towards the end of the corridor. Ethan followed behind her, his face pale with fright. "Liv, where are you going?" Olivia turned back, raising her hand to gently touch the red mole behind his ear. Floating in midair, my body tensed. This was Olivia's unique way of expressing desire. Tonight, she probably wouldn't make Ethan leave the bedroom. Ethan, of course, understood this implication. Joy instantly spread across his face, and he stepped forward to take her hand. The group walked to the end of the corridor. I floated over too, but I didn't sense my body. Mr. and Mrs. Miller were chatting and laughing relaxedly. It seemed they had moved my body elsewhere in the hospital last night. Olivia glanced at Mr. and Mrs. Miller, then lifted her leg to walk down the stairs to the first floor. "Mr. and Mrs. Miller exclaimed in unison. "Let's take the elevator." Olivia said she wasn't that delicate. It was just one floor. Taking the stairs was fine. Ethan suddenly collapsed to the ground. "Liv, I think I have low blood sugar." Seeing him covered in sweat, Olivia finally relented and left with Mr. and Mrs. Miller supporting him. I looked at the dark stairwell between the first and second floors. My body must be hidden there. Mrs. Miller and Grandma, who had rushed over upon hearing the news, stayed with Ethan while he was on in drip. Olivia, however, sat alone in the hospital's VIP lounge. "Mom, Dad, how could you not get rid of that jinx properly?" Ethan's face was full of blame. "There was a small issue with the corneas, so it caused some delay," Mrs. Miller said, looking troubled. "What do you mean? His eyes are no good either." Ethan sat up abruptly. Before Mrs. Miller could answer, Grandma anxiously interjected. "What did you say? His corneas can't be used? Then all these years of my effort have been for nothing. Back then, I just thought my grandson is frail. Maybe in the future, if he has any illnesses, we could still use that jinx's body. Keeping him around is more reliable than storing that umbilical cord blood." Floating in the air, hearing this, I felt my heart plummet into an abyss. So I thought Grandma had fought to keep me, cared for me, raised me because she loved me. Now I knew in her eyes, I was just a living organ bank for my brother. It's okay, it's okay. Even if that jinx's eyes can't be used, Mom and Dad will still find corneas for you. Besides, we all saw how affectionate Ms. Hayes was with you just now. Son, don't worry. Once Ms. Hayes is done with this busy period and you two are officially married, the Hayes family will be ours. Hearing Mr. and Mrs. Miller's reassurances, a smile finally appeared on Ethan's face. "Dad, Mom, Grandma, you're all so good to me." The three of them exchanged a smile. "You're our Miller family's only treasure. Who else will we be good to?" I didn't stay in the room any longer. There was no place for me here anymore. I floated to the lounge where Olivia was. I saw a young doctor spot her through the glass door, push it open, and walk in, speaking familiarly. "Ms. Hayes, what brings you to the hospital?" "Allergies again." I was a bit surprised. Did she often have allergies? "Dr. Evans," Olivia greeted him warmly, acknowledging a past mentor-student dynamic. "So you still remember to call me Dr. Evans, huh? I've told you countless times, you can't keep that dog anymore. If this continues, even daily nebulizer treatments for your asthma won't help." The young man couldn't help but scold her. It was then I realized Olivia was allergic to dog fur. Then why did she let me keep Buddy? It had even reached the point of triggering her asthma, yet she never once mentioned sending Buddy away. "Olivia, you did care about me a little, didn't you? Here, this is your medication for this time. Remember to get rid of that dog of yours soon. I've saved my number in your contacts too. I can never seem to reach you lately. No one's stopping you from hiding away your pretty boy, but you can't just abandon the hospital project, can you? See if I don't report you to our old professor." After the doctor forcibly took her phone and added himself to her contacts, he left, still grumbling. I was just stunned for a moment when I heard the words, "hiding away your pretty boy." So, in her friend's eyes, that's what our relationship looked like. That night, Ethan had long since finished his drip and returned to the villa. But Olivia remained in her study, meeting with people, and didn't emerge until late at night. Strange. She touched Ethan's mole today. Shouldn't she have let him stay the night? "Ms. Hayes, you finally remembered the hospital project. There's an old man who complains to me every day that his star protege became a CEO and forgot all about her mentor. Olivia's best friend and business partner, Chloe Vance, said irritably. So, she went to the hospital today for a previously planned project. I had thought she'd figured out the Miller scheme. Chloe poured her a glass of wine, but Olivia waved it away. Chloe continued talking about the new hospital project, but Olivia seemed distracted. Liv, what's wrong with you? Chloe finally asked, belatedly noticing. Chloe, I've been dreaming a lot lately that Nathan says he's cold. Olivia said softly. Chloe nearly choked. Seriously, if you want to kick me out so you can go cuddle your husband, just say so. This is not how you show off your love life. Husband. So, that's what she called me in front of her best friend. Chloe left, muttering under her breath. But Olivia sat in the study for a long time without coming out. After a while, the faint aroma of wine from Chloe's glass drifted over. Olivia fought back a wave of nausea. Hopefully, it's just a dream. After saying this, she seemed extremely tired. She didn't call Maria to come up and tidy, just walked over to a simple sofa in the study and leaned back. I really wanted to go over and support her, but unfortunately I couldn't. So, I had appeared in Olivia's dreams too. Olivia fell asleep on the sofa. Her brow twitched. She must be having a nightmare. Usually, if I found her like this, I would always hold her in my arms, smooth her furrowed brow, and gently pat her back. Because only at times like these would she drop her sharp demeanor and become as endearing as an infant. I was somewhat annoyed. I'm a spirit now. Why can't I just enter her dreams directly? Tell her there's something wrong with the Miller family. Tell her I'm hidden in the hospital stairwell. On this day, Olivia officially took over the Hayes family, becoming the true matriarch. Her methods were ruthless, not merciful like her father's. The prominent families of Kingsport trembled in fear. Soon, the Lee, Murphy, and Allen families were teetering on the brink of collapse overnight. Scandals of tax evasion, stock market manipulation, and even murder for profit were exposed one after another. They had once conspired, using underhanded tactics to bring down the Hayes family, bleeding them dry. They had driven the Hayes family to ruin, leaving only Olivia. Now it was their turn to pay it all back bit by bit. Only the Miller family remained temporarily unscathed. There were even rumors of a new wedding date. Everyone said it was thanks to the Miller family having such an attentive and pleasing son. So many young men had failed to capture Olivia's heart, but Ethan Miller had kept her infatuated for 2 years, even making her consider marriage. The Miller family was about to hit the jackpot. Mrs. Miller, overjoyed, rushed to the villa again. Son, from now on, no one can touch our Miller family. Ethan, however, still felt somewhat uneasy. Mom, lately Liv and I haven't. Son, be patient. If Ms. Hayes didn't like you, she wouldn't have announced a new wedding date to the public. Mrs. Miller said confidently. What about that, Jinx? Ethan was, after all, still very concerned about this. Still at the hospital. It's been tricky to operate lately because of the new project and too many prying eyes. But don't worry, son, that Jinx was put in the cold storage unit long ago. He's a block of ice by now, Mrs. Miller said nonchalantly. No wonder I've been feeling colder and colder. It seems what she said is true. But why, after all this time, is my spirit still lingering here? After the wedding announcement, Ethan was no longer content to wait for Olivia at home. From beginning to end, he had never truly been intimate with Olivia. He decided to take the initiative. This day, after dinner, Olivia suddenly wanted to go out. She didn't call a driver, just walked out the main gate. Alarm bells instantly went off in Ethan's head. Could Olivia have a new lover? That was unacceptable. The thought that all his dreams of wealth and splendor might vanish in a thin air made Ethan clench his fists. He mustered his courage and followed her. Olivia walked through the nearby neighborhood. I floated beside her, trying to stay as close as possible. The sun hadn't set yet. I shouldn't have been exposed to sunlight like this. But I couldn't afford to care. I felt increasingly cold all over. I guessed I would dissipate soon. I tried to get closer to Olivia, wanted to hold her. But Olivia suddenly stopped in her tracks. She muttered to herself, "Are you really gone? Does she feel me? Olivia, I've been afraid of the cold since I was a child. Can you please not let me stay there?" Ethan trailed Olivia. Seeing a young man from a shop on the street greet her, he frowned deeply. This guy, average looks, average build, his smile wasn't even particularly bright. How could Olivia like this type? Seeing Olivia enter the shop, Ethan, consumed by jealousy, followed her in. It wasn't until he stepped through the door and saw Olivia squatting there, petting a listless dog, that he finally realized. This was a pet clinic? And just then, Olivia turned her head and saw him. Oh no, he was going to be exposed. Ethan finally snapped to his senses and turned to run. Who knew that the originally listless dog's nose would twitch twice, then it would suddenly stand up and lunge outwards, dragging the 4-drip bottle to the ground. Buddy, Olivia cried out. When she and the staff ran out, the scene before them was horrifying. Buddy, in one swift move, tackled Ethan to the ground. After pawing in his coat pocket, he suddenly whimpered, bared his fangs, and bit directly into Ethan's neck. Ethan immediately collapsed in a pool of blood. Young Master, Maria, sensing something was wrong, rushed over, but he seemed to be waiting for her. He bit her hand, and Maria instantly shrieked in pain. Ethan, with his last breath, wanted to call out to Olivia, who was not far away, for help, but he could no longer make a sound. He saw Olivia walking towards him step by step. He was overjoyed, but before the words "save me" could leave his lips, he heard a cold voice from above. "Who are you? Where's Nathan Miller?" "Liv, I am Nathan Miller." Ethan, lying in the pool of blood, reached out to Olivia, his eyes filled with tears, whimpering incoherently. Olivia brought her foot down, stomping on his hand, and said word by word, "I'll ask you one more time. Where's Nathan Miller?" The scene was utterly chaotic, mixed with Maria's agonized screams and the terrified shrieks of the staff. And I only saw my buddy gradually losing strength. He could no longer stand. He just nudged the phone he had dug out of Ethan's pocket towards Olivia, whimpering continuously. He must have smelled my blood on my phone, which is why he fought to the death to attack anyone who might have harmed me. The staff called the police. An ambulance took Maria and Ethan away, but Buddy could no longer stand. Buddy's poisoning is very severe. I can't believe he could still stand up and attack someone, the vet said in disbelief. He finally closed his eyes, his paw still protectively covering my phone. I desperately floated down, wanting to hold my buddy. He had used the last of his strength to avenge me, but I couldn't even cry for him. Olivia stared at him blankly, her mouth agape, but she couldn't say anything. She just walked over, step by step, and stroked his head as if rewarding him, but he would never again narrow his eyes in enjoyment. The next moment, a violent wave of nausea hit her. She rushed to the restroom and vomited her guts out. Floating in the air, I was stunned for a long time. What was wrong with Olivia? This was the second time she had dry heaved. A thought entered my mind, but I quickly dismissed it. That couldn't be possible, right? Just then, her phone rang. "Dr. Evans," she answered. "Olivia, why aren't you at the hospital yet? Got held up by your sugar baby again? If you keep prioritizing him over your responsibilities, watch out. I might actually snip your little boyfriend for real this time," the doctor on the other end complained. Hearing this, floating in the air, I almost lost my balance. Now, I finally remembered why that male doctor looked familiar. Wasn't he the one who performed my surgery? Did his words mean I was never actually sterilized? Was it Olivia's idea? Then why wasn't Olivia using protection? Could it be she actually wanted to have her child? She seemed to like me more than I thought. For a moment, I didn't know whether to be happy or sad. We were having a child, but I was dead. "Olivia, why aren't you talking? Are your allergies acting up again?" The complaining voice came from the other end. But Olivia was staring blankly at my phone. Countless clues converged in her mind. Suddenly, as if remembering something, she said into the phone, "Dr. Evans, I'll be right there." Afterward, she dialed her assistant's number, locked down all hospital exits, detained any suspicious individuals immediately. Olivia sped to the hospital. First, she went to the stairwell between the first and second floors she'd seen earlier. Nothing. The morgue, the autopsy room, nothing. She remembered the words I'd said in her dream and walked step by step to the door of the cold storage unit. I floated above the door. Olivia had finally come to save me. "Ms. Hayes, these people have been lurking suspiciously in the fire escape." Security guards pushed a few people forward. It was shockingly Mr. and Mrs. Miller and another middle-aged man. Olivia felt this man looked somewhat familiar, but she couldn't recall when she had seen him. "Where is his body?" Olivia's tone was glacial. Mr. and Mrs. Miller stood rooted to the spot, helpless. "No, it's not our fault. He just wasn't looking where he was going." Olivia's cold, sharp gaze swept over them. The two of them shrank back further, but still mustered the courage to say, "That Jinx deserved to die. He leached Ethan's nutrients and luck. This position was always meant for Ethan. He was just an imposter." Olivia slammed her fist on the door of the cold storage unit. "I'm asking you, where's the body?" Mr. and Mrs. Miller were so frightened, they immediately fell to their knees. They pointed towards the cold storage. I floated towards the cold storage, but my heart felt empty. How strange. Why did I have this feeling? Olivia immediately ordered someone to open the cold storage unit and push Mr. and Mrs. Miller inside. The two of them shivered, pointing at the middle-aged man beside them. "We don't know which one specifically. We left it all to him." Hearing this, Olivia turned her head and instructed her assistant to lock the cold storage doors from the outside. "Ms. Hayes," the assistant panicked, used her body to block the door, shaking her head desperately. Floating in midair, I also tensed. Letting Mr. and Mrs. Miller die with me was one thing. But was she going to join me too? Floating in midair, I frantically waved my hands, trying to stop her. Damn it, she couldn't see me. I told you. In life he's mine, in death he's my ghost. If he dares to sneak away, even if it's to the afterlife, I'll chase him down and bring him back, Olivia said with a radiant smile. Only then did I remember she had indeed said something like that. But at the time, I just thought it was a threat to keep me constrained. So, from the very beginning, she had been serious. Olivia pried the assistant's fingers, which were desperately clutching the door, off one by one. Ms. Hayes. The assistant broke down, crying hysterically. Just then, the middle-aged man beside them suddenly sighed. Boss lady, you don't remember me, do you? Hearing this, Olivia, as if remembering something, abruptly turned her head to look at him. People like us, we don't kill our saviors. The boss isn't here. Come with me. And only then did I suddenly recognize this middle-aged man. It was the truck driver from last year, the one I had rescued from the roadside, brought home to bandage his wounds, and even cooked a meal for the one who had been in a car accident but refused an ambulance because he had no money in his pocket. I was threatened by these two black-hearted individuals to hit someone. When I saw clearly that the person I hit was the boss, I changed the angle. Then I found an unclaimed body in the morgue to hand over. These two heartless scoundrels didn't even realize that body wasn't the boss's, and they were even fussing about getting some corneas. But the boss was still injured by me, so I arranged for him to be cared for in this hospital. As he spoke, the driver had already led everyone to an ordinary hospital room. At the door of the hospital room, I suddenly felt my heart beating incredibly fast. The next moment, I lost consciousness. I seemed to have had a very, very long dream. Then, I vaguely heard a voice. This dog wants to trade 10 years of its life for 10 days of its master's soul being clear. TSK, TSK. The next instant, I opened my eyes. The first thing I saw was Olivia. Her belly was already visibly swollen. I rubbed my eyes, thinking I must be dreaming. Olivia also stared at me blankly, then rubbed her eyes. Later, I found out I had been in a coma for a full 3 months. Mr. and Mrs. Miller were sent to prison for intentional homicide. Because of their numerous past misdeeds, their sentences were compounded, and they would spend the rest of their lives behind bars. Ethan originally couldn't escape involvement either, but after losing his protectors and going blind, he had a complete mental breakdown. He was now under compulsory medical treatment in a psychiatric hospital. After I was discharged from the hospital, Olivia and I had a grand wedding. 6 months later, Olivia and I welcomed our child. A lovely daughter with a birthmark on the tip of her nose and on her bottom, identical to Buddy's.